Hare Krishna. Today it's the 23rd of March 2015, and we are gathered here to continue our session and discussion on Sri Harinam Cintamani, which is a dialogue between Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the Yuga Avatar, and Sri Haridas Thakur, who is the Namacharya or the designated Acharya or the authority on the Yuga Dharma, which is the chanting of the holy names. The previous session, we covered a few points, and we would be starting off with touching upon those points, and then we will take up the session, today's session, or the subject matter that we have kept aside for today. First, we will offer some prayers, and then we'll begin the session. Om Ajnanatimrandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitamena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Namo Namo Aniruddhaya Hishikeshendriyatmane Namah Paramahamsaya Purnaya Nibratatmane Swarga Pavargadvaraya Nityam Suchisade Namah Namah Hiranyaviryaya Chaturhotraya Tantave. Namo Mahavadanyaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namine Gauratuse Namah. So the previous week, we touched upon the topic of namabhas, or a dim reflection, or abhas, which is a shadow of Shuddhanam, a shadow of the pure names of the Lord. So the specific category we spoke of was the difference between namabhas and Shuddhanam. So we said that neither the soul, which is us, the jiva, nor the holy names are a part of the material sky. Golokera Premadan, Harinam Sankirtan. So the holy names have descended from Vrindavan, and so have we. We are also a part of the spiritual sky. Neither of us belong to the material atmosphere. But yet there is a big gap when we decide to take on the Yuga Dharma between our calling of the Lord's names versus how the Lord's names are called upon in Vraja or in Goloka. There's a very big difference. We say the letters Krishna, we pronounce it, we pronounce Rama, but we stop at the level of letters. It does not come from the heart. Shuddhanam, as it is called upon in Vraja, in Vrindavan, it comes from the heart. Mother Yashoda does not go through any form of obfuscation. She does not go through any form of covering of the holy names when she calls upon Krishna. The friends of Krishna do not go through any form of clouds or confusion when they're calling upon Krishna's names. The other associates of Krishna in Vrindavan do not call upon his names merely from their lips alone. Their whole experience of existence and interaction with Krishna is 100% done with pure, unconditional love. So the big gap that we have, where we chant the holy names, yes, undoubtedly we chant the holy names, we call upon the letters Krishna, Rama, Hare. The residents of Vrindavan call upon the same names, but the residents of Vrindavan call upon the names with prema, with love, and we call upon the names with some obfuscation, some covering. So Srila Haridas Thakur makes a comparison, saying that the holy names are like an extraordinarily potent sun. It is like the sun. It is extraordinarily potent. Even on a very dark day, you can see the sun's rays come forth even if it's fully covered. So the sun in itself cannot be covered fully, but we choose to cover it by our anarthas. We choose to cover it by our ignorance. We choose to cover it by our own weaknesses. So he basically says that these are clouds or a mist like covering that we put on, and we obscure the entire force of the omnipotent Son of the holy name from coming through. So we do the part of actually blocking it. So Namabhas, literally Nama, which is the holy name, and Abhas, which is a dim reflection of the holy name or a shadow of the holy name, is fundamentally also has varying stages. It is not just one stage, it has many stages. In other words, just as we have Vaishnava Abhas, we have a Vaishnava. There is a Vaishnava who is a Vaishnava in the beginning, and so is the case with the Uttamadhikari Vaishnava, someone who is fully matured. There is Shraddha, faith. There's faith in the beginning, which is quite weak. And then there's complete faith on the other extreme. So there are varying degrees of faith. There are varying degrees of how a Vaishnava reacts, and the evolution of the whole process of even becoming a Vaishnava. So in a similar fashion, there are varying degrees of Namabhas. In other words, there is Namabhas where no offenses are committed, but yet it is Namabhas. And there is Namabhas where offenses are committed. Then there is Namabhas where there is deep ignorance. There is Namabhas where someone has absolutely no knowledge, which is deep ignorance. So there are varying degrees of Namabhas, and we're going to go into it to understand those varying degrees. These have been touched upon in Shastra in several ways. But it'll be fascinating for us to see how a unique arrangement has been made to facilitate the movement of the jiva from one stage to the other. It's a very unique karmic arrangement, and we're going to touch upon it quite extensively as we speak on. Now, we spoke last week and said that Srila Haridas Thakur talked about the clouds, the mist that covers our ability to see the sun of the holy name shining through in our hearts and illumining our hearts, right? The sun of the holy name. And we speak of the clouds as of being grouped into three different varieties. The first variety is Asat Trishna. Asat is that which is temporary. Sat is that which is permanent, isn't it? We define the word Sat as truth. There is really no concept of truth that can be called relative truth, because that's bogus. If you use the word truth, it has to be absolute. It really doesn't make sense about saying that something is relatively true, it's temporarily true. Those kind of varieties of definitions of truth do not exist in Vedic Shastra. It does not. In Vedic Shastra, we talk about Sat, which is one. That is it. It's absolute. It is true. It's either true or it's not true. That's what we talk about. So, Asat is that which is not true, that which is temporary, impermanent, of lesser value. Asat, right? And Trishna is that which is inconsequential. Right? Last week we spoke of an example of a Brahmana receiving the blessings of Lord Shiva and going and meeting Srila Sanatan Goswami, wanting to receive Cintamani, which is the stone, the wish-fulfilling gem. We hear that the whole of Vrindavan is extraordinary in that the whole of Vrindavan is paved with Cintamani. Every pebble, every stone in Vrindavan is Cintamani. Any form of desire to serve Krishna is immediately granted. It is said that you don't need to really worry about asking for mangoes from a tree that apparently is not a mango tree, because these trees are Kalpavriksha trees. They will yield mangoes if that's your desire to please Krishna. So the point we wanted to make is that Cintamani, in the material sense, is a wish-fulfilling gem which is extraordinarily precious, and this Brahmana was awarded the Cintamani by Lord Shiva, who sent him to Sanatan Goswami. But then the Brahmana comes and he finds that Sanatan Goswami has kept the Cintamani gem in the backyard amongst the rubbish bins. So he picks up the Cintamani as he goes away. He becomes very doubtful, saying, how could this be near the rubbish bins? Which means he must have something even more precious. And he comes back and asks Srila Sanatan Goswami as to whether there was anything precious which he had, which was even more precious than Cintamani, which made him or motivated him to throw the Cintamani gem near the rubbish dump. At that moment, Srila Sanatan Goswami answered in the affirmative. He noticed that the Brahmana was very sincere. He was really seeking the higher level. He was very sincere. And that is the reason why Lord Shiva sent him to Srila Sanatan Goswami. And Sanatana Goswami says, yes. He says, before I can give you whatever is more valuable, throw this Cintamani, the gem that you have, the wish-fulfilling stone that can grant any material desire, into the river. And then you can come and meet me and I'll give you whatever is precious. The Brahmana, who was very sincere, did not hesitate. He threw the stone away into the river. And then he comes back and he gets initiated into Harinam by Srila Sanatan Goswami. Now, what does this indicate? This basically indicates that Harinam is a Cintamani. It's a wish-fulfilling stone. Harinam is a wish-fulfilling stone of the spiritual category, of the highest category. Anything and everything can be given by the Harinam. So, when one has received the Harinam, but they still hanker after that which is impermanent, that which is asat, then such a person is said to chant the holy names in Namabhas. Such a person is said to chant the holy names in Namabhas. They have received the holy names, but they are still hankering after that which is not true. They are still hankering after the so-called temporary pleasures and the sukhas of the material world. So this appears to be a category which has knowledge, which has been given Shraddha by the Guru, but then the Shraddha has not really ripened to chanting the pure name. So this is Asat Trishna. Now the second category, which causes clouds, is the category of becoming envious or having a certain weakness of mind. Hridaya Durbalya. Someone is weak of the mind and there's a weakness in the heart, and as a consequence, they maintain qualities of envy. And this envy is, for instance, someone is making advancements, so we feel bad instead of feeling thrilled. Isn't it? We want to pull them down, or we want to deride their advancement, or we want to, somewhat blaspheme such a devotee. So such a person is, acting on enviousness. This is enviousness. This is enviousness. And this is Hridaya Durbalya. This is again a very big cloud that obscures the ability of a person to be able to chant the pure name. This is Namabhas. Again, someone is chanting, but then they are holding on to this specific, bundle of enviousness, which is on the head because of weakness of heart. Enviousness comes due to the weakness of heart. And the third category is considered to be worse, and that category is the category of Namaparad. Okay? So these are various clouds. These are various clouds and mists, or they say aparad in general. Why is it called aparad? Aparad is that which goes against the mood of Srimati Radharani. That which goes against the mood of what is normal in Vrindavan is aparad. No one in Vrindavan, in Goloka, would call upon Krishna's names in such a manner. Their hearts will be filled with love, and it automatically produces an enormous amount of changes even in the mental and the physical and every kind of state, even when those who chant the pure names, as described in the Shastra. So why do the three categories come by? We have Asat Trishna, which is hankering after material happiness or that which is relative, that which is temporary. We have Hridaya Durbalya, carrying weakness of heart. There is a weakness of heart. And it could also fall in the category of the first one, which is the Asat Trishna, where there's a weakness of heart which eventually prompts one to go after material aspects or hankering after that. And then you have the gross offenses of aparad. Okay, why does this happen? See, fundamentally, we spoke of the fact that namabas is itself, it goes through different stages. And the stages of namabas are dependent on the level of faith. And the level of faith is dependent on the level of sambandha one has absorbed from sadhu, shastra, guru, the level of sambandha that has been made available. How much have we made use of the level of sambandha that we can really absorb ourselves in the movement offered by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu? Right? We dress in a certain way, right? We wear tilak in a certain way, right? We wear tilak, we dress in a certain way, we observe festivities on certain auspicious days, we fast on certain days, right? And we also have a certain way of eating, sleeping, mating, and defending once you come into the process of devotional service. All of these have been particularly designed for us to develop deeper sambandha gyan. What is sambandha? Sambandha is a deeper knowledge of our relationship with Krishna. At a very fundamental level, the soul being a part and parcel of Krishna is sambandha gyan. And then getting to know that our only purpose in life is to serve the desires of the Lord is also sambandha gyan. But how do you foster the sambandha gyan into higher levels of experience? And the higher levels of experience in turn would increase faith, right? At the highest level, when one in Krishna Prema sees Krishna, when one in Krishna Prema is able to have experiences with Krishna depending on their mellow, at the highest level, there is no question of faith because they're seeing Krishna. You need faith when you cannot perceive something with the physical senses. At the highest level, if people are able to perceive them based on being in this body, then there really isn't a question of faith because they've already experienced Krishna consciousness at the highest level, right? But at lower levels, there's a great need for us to expose ourselves to higher and higher levels of Krishna consciousness that are available through Shastra, through the experience of service, through the experience of chanting in itself, and through the experience of actually pretending to be a resident of Vrindavan. And I'm using this word quite carefully when I say pretense. When we enter into the atmosphere of the temple, Srila Prabhupada designed it in such a way that one enters into the atmosphere of the temple, we sing before the deity, we dance, we honor Krishna Prasadam, right? And we dress in a certain way. Everything has been designed to increase our participation in the pastimes of Vrindavan. We are, in fact, trying to mimic the pastimes of Vrindavan in Mahaprabhu's movement when we enter into an atmosphere in the temple. And as a consequence, these experiences in the temple, these experiences while hearing Shastric accounts of how Krishna is dealt with by different personalities in Shastra, in Srimad Bhagavatam, in Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, we hear about different personalities dealing with Krishna. When we hear about all of this, these leave deeper and deeper impressions on our heart. Our heart is covered with millions of impressions that are completely unrelated to Krishna. Now, the Guru's responsibility is putting the impressions which are related to Krishna to completely overpower and overwhelm and cover the unwanted negative impressions that we have accumulated over millions of lifetimes. That is the whole purpose of Sambandha Gyan. When we worship the deity, right? Archavigraha is Krishna himself. It is Lord Gauranga himself when he comes in the Archavigraha. There's absolutely no difference between Lord Gauranga, Krishna, and the Archavigraha, the deity in the temple or the deity at home. There's no difference. There's really no difference. Now, when we begin serving the deity in the mood of completely understanding that the deity is non-different from Krishna, when we completely focus on being able to do everything centered around the deity at home, then we develop deeper and deeper Sambandha Gyan because there will be experiences. Krishna is a great strategist. Once you begin dealing with him, and if once you begin wanting to make advancement in the science of Krishna consciousness, he would start giving you experiences. So when we worship the deity, there will be experiences, right? There will be experiences. Every one of us, immaterial of how many years we have spent in Krishna consciousness, can vouch for some experience or the other when dealing with the deities. Why? Because this is Krishna's magnanimity that he wants to give us an experience. And that experience, it lands on our chitta, it lands on our consciousness, in our heart, and it creates deeper faith. Once you have one experience, you would look for the next experience the following week. It will be there. This great positive experience of coming in touch with the deity, or the positive experience of coming in touch with the parampara, positive experience of coming in touch with devotees, positive experience of coming in touch with the movement of Lord Chaitanya, all these positive experiences eventually cover the millions and millions of years of existence on this planet. So, in one sense, this is not pretense, it is training. This is a school. But the reason I'm using the word pretend is it is still not the same as what we do in Goloka, right? So we can use the word that we are going through the process of exactly doing what is done in Goloka, but with varying degrees of faith. Eventually, when our experience becomes the same as those the residents of Vrindavan, then we are dealing with the highest level of faith. Similarly, the Sambandha Gyan, as it improves and as it increases, it allows one to chant the holy name better. In other words, the quality of Namabhas improves. It is said that Namabhas without offenses can offer liberation. Yes, Namabhas without offenses can offer liberation. Then the question is, if chanting Namabhas without offenses offers liberation, then what is it which the person is holding on to? As we make progress higher, there are many, many subtle layers of attachment that we would still hold on to, which we may not fully perceive. And it takes years and time for us to be able to unfold and give up the subtle layers of attachment which we are not able to obviously see. If someone were to tell you to give up meat eating, to give up intoxication, that can be seen and that is known. If someone were to tell you not to commit a certain aparad which is well known, it is known because it can be seen. But it's very difficult to perceive certain attachments which are very deep. So one has to constantly upgrade themselves. One has to constantly monitor themselves. One has to take inventory in trying to see if their intentions are truly wanting to please Krishna. Is their intention truly of wanting to chant for them to be able to know Krishna fully? Are we chanting with the goal of wanting to chant the pure name? Or do we have some other hidden agenda? The reason why I'm using the word hidden agenda is because we live a very duplicitous life in the material world. 8 hours of the day we work for the corporate world, and in the corporate world there's a tendency to show something and then be something else. This is duplicity. There's a tendency, and that is exactly what works. You have to somehow or the other present yourself in a certain way which is acceptable to everyone else, to your peers, but then in your heart you have something else, and this is going on practically every day. And as a consequence, we bring the same attitude into the temple. We bring the same attitude while we are chanting, and we bring the same attitude while we are dealing with Krishna, where we want to do something, but then we present it in a different way altogether. Krishna cannot be cheated. As a consequence, we don't receive the Shuddha Nam. We don't receive the pure name. We end up in chanting Namabhas, which in itself is an extraordinarily high stage. It's very potent because it's very close to the Shuddha Nam. It's very close to the pure name. But the subtle attachment and subtle habits which we have inculcated by being exposed constantly to material nature are those which are the culprit, which keep us away from chanting the holy names. even when we are in Namabas with this chanting without any offenses, even offenseless chanting. Now, at this stage of Namabas, which is offenseless, one has received a lot of Sambandha Gyan. There is still a lot of Sambandha Gyan which has been received right from the stage of knowing that we are servants of Krishna, right up to the stage of being able to chant offenselessly. The Sambandha Gyan has increased and one is able to give up offenses, but there are still subtle attachments. And these subtle attachments prey upon our ability to chant the pure name. And it takes time. It takes a lot of sincerity. It takes a lot of prayers. And the real issue is that if you do not take it up very seriously, in other words, if you do not become impatient, if we do not become impatient of not being able to chant the pure name, if we do not become impatient to the extent where we start begging Mahaprabhu saying, please, I'm just tired of going on in the manner which I'm going on. I've been doing this for X number of years. I'm very tired. I want to move ahead. I want to move forward. I need your help. Unless we become very serious and very sincere and put forth our request to Mahaprabhu, help will not be made available. The reason is that there has to be reciprocation. We have to put it forth. We have to become sincere in our hearts. We have to really want the goal of being able to chant the pure name. We really have to be able to appreciate what Shastra is telling us. Okay? We really have to appreciate what Shastra is telling us. We have to be able to ask Mahaprabhu, begging him, saying, please, please help me. Help me see where my faults are. Let me be able to introspect. Let me be able to introspect. Let me see where my faults are. Let me be able to chant the pure names. You have come forward. You have given us such a magnanimous gift. You are Mahavadanyaya. It is not an ordinary gift. Remember, Shuddha Naam is Krishna Prema. No one else can give it other than Mahaprabhu. Therefore, it's a very, very rare opportunity for us to be chanting this. But yet, we still have a lot of hankerings which are not aligned with our goal of attaining pure bhakti. We do not have that as a goal. We still have a lot of hankerings. We have a lot of need for many adjustments that need to be made for us to be able to chant. There has to be a tendency for us to be able to focus on our chanting, understanding that everything else can wait. Do your chanting properly. There is a need for us to focus on rearranging our lives so that we can chant nicely. Right? Do we remember this extreme case? The extreme cases are helpful because they help you understand as to what can be done. It shows us what is possible. It's not necessary that any one of us can even imitate such behavior or even should dream of doing such. But it tells you as to what is desperation and what exactly is required. It kind of tells you how serious one can actually become. Then we hear of Srila Gaur Kishore Das Babaji Maharaj. He is the spiritual master of Srila Prabhupada's spiritual master, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. Right? So Gaur Kishore Das Babaji Maharaj is considered to be the epitome or the greatest example in our parampara of renunciation, vairagya. So for him, he simply did not want anything of this world. His sincerity was such that he really did not want anything of this world, nothing. Not even Sangha in terms of followers. Nothing. He just did not want anyone. He just wanted the holy names and he wanted to be left alone to be able to call upon the holy names with all his heart. So when he found that there were people who were actually following him because they believed that he had some mystic powers and so on and so forth, and mystic powers come upon when, as a result of chanting as well, it's insignificant. It's insignificant. It is Yoga Mishra, Karma Mishra, Jnana Mishra. These are all different kinds of Mishra Bhakti. And these are all a point of having weak Shraddha, then one gets enamored. But all of these are very insignificant. And Srila Gaur Kishore Das Babaji Maharaj was known to be a perfectionist. He was known to be a Siddha. So there were many who wanted to have his association for their own material purposes. To avoid their company, he occupied a toilet. And this was not a modern toilet with perfect sanitation. This was a toilet of early 19th century, and it was not a toilet where there was a drain. So you can imagine what the situation was. He simply was there so that people would not ever come near him in a bid to avoid the stench. And what was his desperation? He just wanted to be left alone to call upon the holy names. Very sincere. There's nothing in the heart, nothing, zero, nothing subtle in the heart at the deepest level, and it prompted him to run away from everything and to go and chant the holy names. It is an extreme example, not something which anybody can follow, not something which is even recommended, but it can be appreciated that this is something which is extraordinary, and there were people who understood it was extraordinary and took upon the opportunity to act with such urgency. This is a case of urgency. If my time on the planet is such and such, immaterial of even it's 100 years, it is still less. I have to do my part. There is kripa, there's mercy, but I have to do my part. Right? So unless that desperation is there, that which is subtle is going to not allow us. It is going to take time. So this is your namabhas, which has the three categories. The first category is asat trishna, holding on to material hankerings despite receiving knowledge of the glories of the holy name. Okay, and this is very obvious. Material hankerings could be fame, recognition. It's quite subtle, so it may not be something which is easily understood, but it is there. Okay, but that is what we need to bring out. We need to be able to focus and introspect and be able to bring out and say that I don't want this. I really do not want this. I want to be able to chant. So there has to be some active management of what is going on inside. Okay? Now, this has to be done when it is very subtle. You have to kind of become a little introspective. You have to take inventory. You have to be constantly monitoring yourself to see if how eager are we to read Shastra. We have to be able to constantly monitor ourselves to see how eager and how receptive are we to Shastric conclusions. When you read Shastra, just examine what happens in your heart. Are you accepting it? Are you doubting it? Are you rejecting it? Find out, because do not read Shastra just like that. Even reading of Shastra can give you clues as to the level of Shraddha one possesses. At the higher levels, Shastra is lived. There is no need of any convincing. Shastra is practically lived upon. So examine what's going on inside when Shastra is being read. When you pick up Srila Prabhupada's books, when you read Srimad Bhagavatam, find out what is going on inside. Because every one of us has something going on inside while we do something outside, isn't it? We live a very fragmented existence. Since we are so fragmented, it is good for us to introspect. Find out what is going on inside when you read Shastric conclusions. That will tell us if our Shastra and if our Shraddha is properly aligned. Is it properly aligned? Are we aligned? Because all of these are all connected. If someone has weak Shraddha, they are chanters of Namabhas, they are chanters of the weak, offensive names. They chant names offensively. They're chanters who are offensive. They also behave offensively. All of these are just connected. So we need to be able to examine and see if we have any block while we read Shastra. Take a reflection. Deal with others and find out if you have any blocks in dealing with others, and find out if there's a problem. Okay? See if there's any problem. Is there any anger coming up while you're dealing with other Vaishnavas? Is there any intense anger that is coming up while you deal with other Vaishnavas, which tells you that there's something wrong in terms of the experience that we have had? We have not been able to connect it to Krishna consciousness. Right? We have not been able to accept the arrangement made by the Lord. We have simply gotten caught up in the experience itself. We have not been able to move ahead. There's a lot of anger. Right? Find out how we deal with them. Find out if we are happy to perform deity worship. Are you happy to serve the deities? Every one of us does a little bit. Find out how happy you are. Okay, if there is some amount of, I wish this was not happening, I wish, we don't need to worship, and so on and so forth. It is a matter of introspection. These are all clues, because these are all the ways in which we interact with Krishna. We interact with Krishna by touching upon Srimad Bhagavatam. We interact with Krishna by calling upon his holy names. Find out if you're interested in getting up Find out if we grab onto the holy names and the beads with enthusiasm. We should find out if we are engaging in deity worship with enthusiasm, or do we look at it as a burden. Okay, find out if we're dealing with Vaishnavas and we find it too cumbersome in any manner, where we find that there's a lot of anger in our dealings. These are a few ways in which we can determine if we are on track or if there's something subtle which is holding out. And these are the kind of things where we surely should be bringing it out, presenting it to the spiritual master, receiving his blessings so that it could be cleared. Or reading, begging Srila Prabhupada and prayerfully picking up his books so that we could clear the nonsense that is in our heart. Because this nonsense is keeping us away from the very goal of life. It is actually creating a huge, huge block, and we need to work at it. Okay? So we spoke of three things. To summarize, we spoke of Asat Trishna, hankering for material happiness or hankering for that which is relative, hankering for that which has absolutely no basis, which is temporary, Asat Trishna. The second was Hridaya Durbalya. Do we still have the weakness of heart? Okay, this is again related to our ability to accept Shastric conclusions. It also has ability or our practice of being able to follow through on our principles of sadhana and even maintain regulative principles. Find out if we are committing gross aparad. Accept it. Take inventory, because this inventory will help us determine where we are actually losing it. Where is it where we are losing it? Where should we move on? Okay. So I'm going to stop here. Next week, next class, which is on Thursday, we will get into the 4 different attitudes of Namabas, and we will be taking up examples from the Srimad Bhagavatam to study these. It is just absolutely fascinating. Actually, I'm very grateful to all of you that you are participating in this session, because in an attempt to share a little bit about a few realizations, or to just simply present the conclusions of Sri Harinam Cintamani, I am going into a lot about the glories of the holy names, and it's fascinating. It's simply fascinating to see the amount of mercy that has actually been arranged. It is fascinating. Therefore, I am very grateful for this opportunity, and hopefully I would also be able to assist others by my sharing. So we'll stop here, and we'll see if you have any questions. Next week, we'll look at the next class. We will look at the 4 different attitudes of Namabas. Okay, Akhilesh Prabhu, you have a question, which is, what is the meaning of anartha? This is from Akhilesh Prabhu. Artha, literally, if you take up even a Devanagari Hindi translation, artha is that which has meaning. Anartha is that which has no meaning to further the cause of surrendering to the holy names. That which has no meaning to further the cause of surrendering to Sri Guru. That which has more meaning to further the cause of our being able to align ourselves with duty activities that are connected to our eternal nature. Okay? That which has no meaning. So you should be able to examine activities that you perform during the day outside of it. Some of it is necessary because we are a part of the material sky and we need to be a part of whatever it is to, keep body and soul together. Hmm? But beyond going to work, what is it that we are doing? Examine ourselves. Why don't we examine ourselves to see what is it that we are doing beyond going to work? How are we spending time once we get back home? How are we spending time even at work? Examine them. And you will find out that there will be many, many opportunities for us to upgrade our existence even in these situations. It's actually quite easy for us to examine and do so. Some of it will just be very glaring. You know, many of us believe that we can entertain ourselves with mundane entertainment and not be affected. It is not true. The more we expose ourselves to the consciousness of others, which also impact us emotionally, the more difficult it would be for you to uproot such impressions from your heart. If you watch a movie and you walk away from the movie completely moved by the participants in one way or the other because we identify with the actors, you will be weakening your creeper because you have now identified with a certain phenomenon at a very deeper level. It is like hearing a beautiful story from the Shastra and getting very moved. It will have its own impact on your chitta, in our consciousness. The opposite is also true, that we expose ourselves to material entertainment to such an extent that it leaves deep impressions where we identify with the actors and the actresses and so on and so forth. We believe it's required, we do such things, and then when we walk away, we find that we carry such impressions even while we chant. Okay? Sometimes whatever we watch can come up in the mind. If it is very gross, if it is of a more graphic nature, it kind of sticks to the chitta. It's very difficult to remove because even if you feel embarrassed, even after a few years, even after 10 years, sometimes people remember things, or we remember things, which are gross. Reason? The impression was very deep. So what we must do is really work on ourselves to avoid exposing ourselves to activities which are not connected. Do not expose yourself unnecessarily. In other words, pay attention and try and see if there's any meaning to the time spent in pursuing certain activities. That's going to be very important for us to be able to move forward. So if something is not connected, it has no meaning, anartha. Without any artha, without any prospect of contributing to Krishna consciousness. Okay, I hope that answers your question. All right, so the next question is from Mother Vilas Manjari, is basically everything we do, example, reading Shastra, hearing, association, following rules and regulations of Vaidhi sadhana, is to strengthen our sambandha for Krishna, then faith, then better chanting. Yes, basically, faith comes in the beginning. And then when we engage with faith, we deepen our sambandha because there are experiences. First, faith, Adav Shraddha, then there is Sadhu Sangha, then there is Bhajana Kriya. And then, because of all of this, we learn what is Artha and what is Anartha. So there is Anartha Nivritti, or giving up of that which has no meaning, because we have now associated with sadhus and we are fully able to, understand, we are able to engage with sadhus and we are able to understand the goal of life. In a few moments of engagement with sadhus, potent, pure devotees of the Lord is enough. Srila Prabhupada started the movement by taking kartals. He took a pair of kartals and he went and sat down and he started chanting in the park. Wasn't it? Wasn't it the case? We all seen the original video. And there were many personalities who surrounded him who simply did not know what he was chanting about. But they joined him, isn't it? They were engaging in namabas. Okay, we're going to look at it more deeper, but they were engaging in namabas. They did not know. They were ignorant of the aspects, but they were enthused by the chanting and the purity of the sound that was coming from Srila Prabhupada's lotus lips. And hearing it immediately gripped them and they were transformed. And automatically they began dancing and chanting and so on and so forth. They started participating, right? So the point we want to say is that when we initially put in faith and then we engage with sadhus, potent sadhus, we hear Srila Prabhupada speaking, it pierces through our heart. Why? Because there is such deep faith in Srila Prabhupada's heart that it pierces through our consciousness and helps us see things in a completely different manner. It's immediate. It does not require deep reflection, it is immediate. Right? So the point we want to make is that we accept first, which is Shraddha, and then we act, and then we automatically increase our Sambandha of Krishna. That will be the order. And observe each and every activity that we do, because every activity that we do is giving you clues on the problems or the lack thereof. Okay, Mother Sahitya, I'm sorry, Sakhi Vrinda Mataji. We just heard about developing the right interest and enthusiasm in performing seva. Could you share some insights on the mood of prayers and their power to request for such an interest or enthusiasm while we realize that we need to strengthen it? Prayers are extraordinarily important, extraordinarily important. It should be a part of a daily service. How rare would it be for us to even come across or come in touch with the potent consciousness of Nitya Siddhas, like Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, like Sri Narottam Das Thakur? How important and how rare is that opportunity for us to even come in touch with such personalities in our life? So when we want to approach those prayers, there are two ways. There are two kinds of prayers. One is that you can write your own prayer, very sincere prayer, identifying a certain area of your life which really requires help for you to be able to move forward. That's absolutely bona fide. It's accepted. The other kind of prayer is to take on the prayers of the Nitya Siddhas, Narottam Das Thakur, and our other acharyas like Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur. They have written such amazing words, literally giving us a lot of opportunity for us to be able to move forward. The way we should approach those, it's recommended, is that we first have to develop some connection with them by reading about them. Read about Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur. Read about the lifestyle of Srila Narottam Das Thakur from Chaitanya Charitamrita. Read about it from different scriptures on how Narottam Das Thakur and Bhaktivinoda Thakur and so on were actually living on this planet. Once we create this level of impression, we should also actively pray to them. We should offer prayers to these exalted personalities with the request that they assist us in allowing us to be able to chant the prayers which they have offered. Approaching the prayers written by Narottam Das Thakur requires his blessings. Approaching the prayers written by Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur requires his blessings. We may not be in the mood. We may never be in the mood in which they wrote it. That's a different issue. But we seek their help. We actively get to know the Acharya by reading about their, autobiography, biography, whatever the case may be. We also make prayers to them, requesting them to help us to be able to chant with the consciousness with which they chanted. And that would greatly assist in being able to move us forward. But most important is for us to really want the results of the prayer. Reflect on it. These are very potent prayers, but there should be a lot of reflection. Initially, before I got initiated, Srila Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj, my Guru Maharaj, had made a prayer in Mayapur, and the prayer was that it was a very potent prayer. It was practically the English translation of Srila Rupa Goswami's definition of Shuddha Bhakti. Anyabhilashita Shunyam, Jnana Karmadhi Anavritam, right? Anukuliyana Krishna Anushilanam Bhakti Uttama. This, the English translation Srila Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj had written was, Krishna in a very simple way. Krishna, take away whatever needs to be taken away from me. Bring upon me whatever is auspicious or inauspicious for me to be a better servant of Srila Prabhupada. Whatever needs to happen for me to be a better servant, let it come upon me. This is practically wanting Shuddha Bhakti, not wanting anything related to the material sky, not wanting any kind of Mishra Bhakti where he is petitioning Srila Prabhupada, he's petitioning Mahaprabhu, he's petitioning Krishna, saying, take away whatever needs to be taken away and give me even inauspicious results in my life. Now, when he made this prayer in Mayapur, he requested the devotees to take this up. He wanted many devotees to take it up because this prayer practically, has the potency to bring one out of anartha nivritti and being able to connect one into, Guru Nishta, at least being able to place them with the deeper Sambandha Gyan of Guru and Krishna. But the warning was that reflect on it. Reflect on the prayer before making the prayer. Understand that these prayers are potent. Understand that the personalities who have spoken are with extraordinary Shakti. So reflect on it. And then understand that before taking it up, that even if we are never at the level of sincerity with which these prayers were made, yet we at least have a semblance of a chance because we are offering prayers to the Acharyas. So he made that prayer, and then when I met him in New Vrindavan later, and I wanted to chant these prayers, I shared this fact with him. I said, it makes me quite vulnerable to even make this prayer. How do I sit before Srila Prabhupada? How do I sit before my deities saying, take away whatever you want to take away. Do whatever you want to do. It makes me feel quite vulnerable to make this prayer. So I shared this with him. And he demonstrated the potency, his potency and the potency of the parampara in a quite extraordinary way. A week after that, we had a Sangha in Gitanagari. And during the Sangha, one of the devotees arranged a session of prayerful reading. And the session of prayerful reading was that, they basically cut out pieces of, verses of the Srimad Bhagavatam, folded it into a small chit, which they put it in a basket. And then the idea was for each one of us to pick a chit and then, read the verse. And since it was prayerful reading, there was some potency, something very mystical that was happening in the prayer room in Gitanagari, that every one of us who got those chits got chits which were actually aligned with the fears and the weaknesses that we had. In my case, specifically, the one that I got, I don't remember the exact verse, but it had to do with vulnerability in the face of asking Krishna to do things. Vulnerability in the face of wanting to surrender. So that was the exact verse I got. And then that, gave him the opportunity to share the fact that even though we are vulnerable, we still make the prayer, because surrender is all about being vulnerable, but then allowing ourselves to be taken care of by the beloved. Just like a child crossing the road has 100% trust in the parents, right? The parents hold on to their hands and then take them across the road. So this is something which, we also need to remember, that we were making prayers of the Nitya Siddhas, or of a kind which make us feel quite vulnerable, make us feel that, am I ready for this kind of an effect? Am I ready for something if Krishna really acts upon it? We have to remember that, we are ready. We are ready because there really isn't anything else about, the being a part of the Sangha of Srila Prabhupada and of Mahaprabhu. We want to accelerate. We want everything to happen which is going to bring us closer to be able to chant the holy names. Auspicious, inauspicious, so be it. Because we want to chant and we want to be able to call upon Shuddha Nam, which is the most auspicious effect. So we want to be ready. So the point which I want to make is reflect on it, understand it, digest it, then offer the prayers. Before that, develop sambandha with the authors. Right? I don't know if I kind of digressed, but I think there was somewhat of a long answer. Okay, there's one more question is, does Namabha's offensive stage reveal our anarthas? Example, it doesn't like, I'm reading it don't like duplicity. I thought I'm not duplicit in nature. I was surprised to see duplicitness in me, especially while chanting. Yeah, if we examine ourselves, if we have the guts to examine ourselves even for half a day or even for 1 hour, we will find that there are many, many things that we do internally which may have absolutely nothing to do with the behavior that we have outside. So does it reveal our anarthas? Of course. The holy names, if you approach them sincerely, would reveal everything. If we are sincere, wanting to know what is blocking us, it would be revealed. Make a prayer to Srila Prabhupada, open Srimad Bhagavatam, open the Bhagavad Gita. We will have answers. I've seen it happen several times to me and to other devotees. Try it out. I think there was some question here which I saw. Okay, it's from Shamlila Mataji. If you have a few hours in the morning, what should be your focus, chanting or deity worship? Okay, this is from Krishna Karuna Prabhu. Okay. If you have few hours in the morning, that's a lot. A few hours is a lot of hours. You can do both. Srila Prabhupada gave a standard. Srila Prabhupada gave a standard of being able to complete both deity worship and cooking in 1 hour, because we are a preaching mission. We cannot be affording to spend too much time doing anything. So some of us are very complicated. They need very complicated worship and so on and so forth, which is fine. They can do that. But for most part, it should be kept simple and it should be within 1 hour. So if we worship the deities for 1 hour, it should still allow us enough time for us to be able to chant. But if it is going to be a choice of should I chant or worship my deities, I would say chant. I would say chant any day. Yeah. Do not allow the process of chanting. There really are no second thoughts, if you ask me. I would not be compromising on it. I would simply say chant. If you have to worship the deities and chant, chant. But understand that both can be done. Understand that both can be done. Because it is our own mismanagement of time which does not allow us to do both. When in reality, both can be done. Deity worship is very potent, and it can allow us to make rapid advancement if it is done nicely. It can allow us to make rapid advancement if it can be done nicely, because the sambandha or the relationship with Krishna can accelerate with deity worship. It can really accelerate because the experiences of one who is worshipping the deity will be quite profound. It's a great opportunity. So if we take it seriously and if we're able to do it, it's wonderful because it will help us accelerate. Okay? It should not be compromised. But if our lifestyle or the unfortunate circumstances of whatever we are doing is such that we have to choose chanting. Choose chanting any day. Okay? Choose chanting. Because nothing else is going to help other than calling upon the holy names. Everything else should assist calling upon the holy names. Everything else should assist. If you find that something is not assisting in your being able to call upon the holy names effectively, take a very close look to reject it, because that's going to be something which needs very close look. You should be able to reject it. Okay, I think that addressed the question. So is there anything else? I believe if there are any more questions, I would request you to post it under the forum part of sandhini.com. And the reason for my saying this is that if you post your questions either on Google or on Facebook, it would disappear. and not many people even read it. What I would suggest is that you post it on sandhini.com under the class, and all you need is your email and your password. If your password is missing, I would be able to more than happy to I would be very happy to help. Write to me, and but I request you to kindly keep any kind of exchange on the website so that we can capture it permanently. Thank you very much. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.